My name is Nathan. I'm 28 years old, and until yesterday, I thought I could trust my own memories. Now, I'm not so sure. It began like any ordinary morning, except for one small, strange detail. I woke up late. Not just a little late, but uncomfortably late for me. 9:12 a.m. The pale light coming through the curtains told me it had been sunny for hours already. I'm usually up by 7. I rolled over, blinking against the light, and saw my phone glowing on a nightstand. One notification. It was from Emily. Emily and I weren't exactly close. We'd met at a friend's party a few weeks earlier. She was the kind of person you couldn't forget easily. Easy laugh, eyes that seemed to look right through you, and a way of speaking that made you feel like every word mattered. We'd texted casually since then, but nothing serious. Her message was short. Emily, breakfast at 10? I'm already on my way. I stared at the screen for a second, caught between surprise and a strange little thrill. We hadn't planned anything, but the idea of seeing her again, especially so spontaneously, made me smile. I typed back quickly, "Sure, can't wait." There was a rush. Jeans, shirt, shoes, a glance in the mirror. My reflection looked more tired than I expected, but I brushed it off. At exactly 10 o'clock, I heard a car pull up outside. Emily stepped out, dressed casually but somehow perfect. She smiled in that way that made her whole face light up. "Today's going to be amazing, don't you think?" she said, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. We walked to a little cafe on the corner, the one with the old brick walls and the smell of fresh bread that drifts out onto the street. Inside, sunlight spilled across the tables, catching dust motes in the air. I could smell coffee, sugar, and something warm from the oven. We sat by the window. Emily talked about her job, about the movie she'd watched last night, about how she used to climb the old apple tree behind her grandmother's house when she was a kid. I told her about my work, my favorite books, and the time I got lost in the woods as a child and convinced myself I'd been gone for days. She laughed, really laughed, like she could see the lost little boy in her mind. After breakfast, she suggested we walk through the park. It was warm, breezy, and alive with sound. Leaves rustling, children shouting somewhere in the distance. At one point, a group of pigeons startled from a bench and flew straight at me. I flinched so hard she nearly doubled over laughing. She took out her phone and snapped a couple of quick pictures, grinning as she tucked it away. We drifted from the park into a few small shops, looking at random trinkets and secondhand books. Somewhere along the way, we bought ice cream and sat on a low wall, watching people pass by. It all felt easy. Too easy. Then she looked at me, her expression shifting just slightly. "I want to show you something," she said. She drove us out of the city to a quiet lake surrounded by tall pines. The water was still except for the faint ripples from the wind. There was no one else around, just the two of us. Emily slipped off her shoes and walked into the shallows, her toes breaking the glassy surface. She tilted her head back, eyes closed, letting the sunlight touch her face. She looked alive in a way that made me forget everything else. We stayed until the sun dipped low, painting the sky in gold and pink. On the drive back, the car was quiet, but not uncomfortably so. When we reached my street, I thanked her for the day. She smiled, but this time there was something different about it, softer, almost secretive. "We'll see each other again," she said quietly. It felt like a perfect day. I didn't know it was about to become a nightmare. When I got home, the apartment felt colder than it should have been. Not physically cold. The thermostat read a comfortable 22 degrees, but the kind of cold you feel in your chest, a quiet stillness that didn't belong. I kicked off my shoes, dropped my keys on the counter, and collapsed onto the couch. My mind was replaying the day. Emily's laugh at the cafe, the wind off the lake, the way the sunlight caught her hair. I felt lighter than I had in weeks. I pulled out my phone and opened our chat, typing, "Thanks for an amazing day. You're truly special." I expected her to send back a heart emoji, or maybe a playful likewise. Instead, just a few minutes later, my phone lit up, but it wasn't a text. It was an incoming call. From Emily. I answered with a grin still on my face. "That was quick," I said, but her voice stopped me cold. "Nathan, I don't know how to tell you this, but..." Her tone was small, tight. "I was in a car accident yesterday. I'm in the hospital. I broke my leg. I haven't left this bed in over a week. I let out a short laugh, waiting for her to say she was joking. Emily, what are you talking about? We spent the whole day together. We went to the cafe, walked in the park, drove to the lake. She cut me off, her voice trembling now. Nathan, I have no idea what you're talking about. We haven't seen each other since the party. I don't even know where that lake is. I froze. My mouth opened, but no words came. Do you have any pictures? Anything to prove this? She asked. Yes. You took some at the park, I said, already swiping to my photo gallery. But as I scrolled, my heart began to pound in my ears. There was nothing, no cafe, no park, no lake. Just one new image sitting at the top of the gallery. It was blurry, dark, but I could still make out the shape of my own living room. And there, lying on the couch, was me, asleep. My chest tightened. My hand began to shake so badly, I almost dropped the phone. Emily, I whispered, there's only one picture, and it's of me sleeping here. She was silent for a long moment. Then, almost too quietly to hear, she said, that's impossible. The line went dead. I sat there in the stillness of my apartment, staring at the photo. My ears were ringing, my breathing shallow. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught movement, just a flicker in the darkened glass of my window. It was my reflection, but I wasn't alone. Behind me stood a woman. Same hair, same smile as Emily. Only her skin was pale, and her eyes were hollow, empty black. I spun around. There was nothing there. I stayed frozen for a good 30 seconds after turning around, my eyes sweeping the empty room. My apartment looked the same as always. The faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen, the quiet tick of the wall clock. But something felt off. It wasn't just the reflection in the glass. It was the air itself, heavy, charged like the atmosphere before a thunderstorm. I stood up slowly, phone still in my hand, and took a step toward the window. The street outside was quiet. The same parked cars, the same flickering street lamp that the landlord never fixed. But the reflection I'd seen, the woman, was gone. I told myself it had to be a trick of the light. Maybe my mind was still tangled in the shock of Emily's call. That explanation would have worked if it weren't for what I noticed next. The throw blanket on my couch was folded. Perfectly. I never fold it. In the kitchen, my coffee mug, the one I left in the sink this morning, was gone. I opened the cupboard and there was clean, dry, and placed back exactly where it belonged. Everywhere I looked, there were little differences. My shoes, which I had kicked off by the door, were now neatly side by side. A book I had left face down on the coffee table was now closed, its spine aligned perfectly with the edge. It was like someone had been in my apartment, not to steal, not to search, but to tidy. And then I saw it. On the small dining table, right in the center, sat a plate. On it was a single slice of bread, buttered neatly, with one bite missing. I hadn't made it. My mouth went dry. My eyes darted to the lock on the front door. Still locked from the inside. The quiet in the apartment shifted. I don't know how else to describe it. It was as though the silence itself was aware of me. Watching, I stepped back toward the couch, thinking about calling someone, anyone, when my phone buzzed in my hand. A new text. Unknown number. You should eat before it gets cold. My blood ran cold. I dropped the phone like it was burning me, the sound of it hitting the hardwood loud in the stillness. I didn't move. I didn't even breathe. Then from the bedroom, I heard it, a faint, almost playful giggle. The giggle was soft, almost childlike, but it didn't belong in my apartment. It drifted from the direction of my bedroom, and for a moment I wondered if my mind was playing tricks on me. But then it came again, closer. Every instinct told me to leave, to run out the door, call the police, do anything except walk toward that sound. And yet my feet carried me down the short hallway, my body moving slow, like I was pushing through water. The door to my bedroom was half open. I could see part of the bed, the crumpled sheets, the faint shape of my pillow. Nothing unusual. I reached for the light switch. The bulb flickered twice before holding, casting pale yellow across the room. Empty. I stepped inside, scanning every corner, under the bed, behind the door, inside the closet. Nothing. The window was shut tight, the latch in place. That's when I noticed it. On the nightstand, next to my lamp, sat a photograph. I didn't own any printed photos. I picked it up with shaking fingers. The picture was of me, sitting at the lake with Emily, the way I remembered yesterday. The sunlight was the same, the trees behind us identical. But there was one thing wrong. In the photograph, Emily's face was blurred. Not like the camera had moved. The rest of the picture was crystal clear, but like her features had been smeared away, leaving an indistinct, ghostly oval where her smile should be. And behind us, in the water, something stood. A dark shape. Humanoid. Too far to make out details, but the posture was wrong. Bent forward, watching. A floorboard creaked behind me. I spun so fast the photo nearly slipped from my hand. Standing in the doorway was a woman. Her hair hung in loose waves, the same color as Emily's. She was smiling, but her eyes were just pits of shadow, swallowing the light. She tilted her head. "You didn't eat your bread," she said softly. And then she was gone. The doorway was empty. My chest was so tight it hurt to breathe. The woman, whatever she was, had been standing right there, close enough to touch. And now she was simply gone. I didn't wait to figure it out. I grabbed my keys from the counter, shoved my feet into my shoes, and went straight for the front door. My hands fumbled with the lock, slick with sweat. The bolt clicked back, and I yanked the door open. But the hallway outside wasn't the hallway I knew. Instead of the dull beige walls and peeling carpet of my apartment building, I was staring into a narrow corridor lined with dark wood, lit by a row of old, buzzing light bulbs. The air smelled damp, like rain-soaked earth. My first thought was that I'd gone out the wrong door, but that was impossible. This was my apartment. I took one step over the threshold, and the floor beneath my shoe creaked like ancient wood. My skin prickled. The hallway stretched too far, impossibly long, fading into shadow. I couldn't see the end. Somewhere down that corridor, a faint wet dripping echoed. And then a voice. Emily's voice. "Nathan, why are you leaving?" It came from far away, but it was clear, almost too clear. I backed up instantly, heart hammering, and slammed the door shut. I locked it, double-checked the chain, and pressed my back to the wood like I could keep whatever was out there from getting in. The apartment felt different now. The light from the windows had dimmed, like the day outside had skipped ahead to dusk. I forced myself to breathe, to think. My phone was still on the couch. I could call someone. A friend. The police. Anyone. But when I picked it up, the lock screen was wrong. It showed a photo. Not my wallpaper. Not anything I'd ever taken. It was a picture of my front door. Taken from the inside. A shadow stood in the frame, on the other side of the wood, tall, feminine, head tilted slightly. I dropped the phone onto the cushion and backed away. That's when I heard it. A slow, deliberate knock on the door. 3 times. The sound of the knock still echoes in my head now. 3 slow thuds. Not rushed, not timid, deliberate. I stood in the center of the living room, staring at the front door, waiting for it to come again. It didn't. Maybe it was a neighbor. Maybe I imagined it. Then it came again, but this time it wasn't from the door. It was from behind me. I turned sharply. The sound was coming from the bedroom. My stomach dropped. The bedroom door was still open from before, the shadows inside thickening as the light from the living room faded. I took a hesitant step toward it, and the knock came again, 3 slow taps like knuckles against wood. Only there was no wood in that direction. I crossed into the room, scanning for the source. My eyes landed on the closet door. It was shut now. I was certain I'd left it open when I'd checked earlier. I stood frozen for what felt like minutes, my breath shallow. The knock came again, muffled through the thin wooden panel. Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I reached for the doorknob. My hand trembled as my fingers closed around the cold metal. I yanked it open. Inside there was nothing, just my hanging clothes swaying slightly, as if touched by a breeze that shouldn't exist. And then, from inside the closet, a voice whispered my name. Not loud, not even threatening, but close. Intimately close, like someone's lips were just inches from my ear. "Nathan." I stumbled back, hitting my shin on the bed frame. My eyes darted to the corner of the room, and that's when I saw it. A pale hand, slender and feminine, slid slowly out from behind the hanging shirts. The fingers curled, beckoning me. I didn't wait. I bolted from the room, slammed the bedroom door shut, and pressed my weight against it. From the other side, the knocking started again. 3 times, and then a soft laugh. The laughter behind the bedroom door lingered in my ears long after it stopped. I stayed there, leaning my full weight against it, until I realized something horrible. The handle was cold. Colder than metal should ever feel indoors. Whatever was in there wasn't leaving. And if I stayed here, neither was I. I stumbled to the living room window, fumbling with the latch. My apartment's on the third floor, but right now a broken ankle sounded better than staying in this place another second. I shoved the window open, letting in a rush of cool air. Only, it wasn't cool in the way night air should be. It was still, heavy, and carried a faint, sour smell like stagnant water. When I looked out, my stomach turned. It wasn't the street. It wasn't anything. The view outside was wrong. The buildings, the street lamps, the parked cars gone. In their place was a flat, endless expanse of black water stretching out in every direction. No ripples, no reflections, just a lightless surface like ink poured across the world. Far away, or maybe closer than it seemed, stood a figure. The water reached only to her ankles, but she didn't move. Her hair, the same as Emily's, hung straight down, dripping as if she'd just risen from the water. Even at this distance, I could tell her head was tilted in that same unnatural way I'd seen before. Watching me, my breath hitched. Then the impossible happened. She stepped forward. And with every step she took, the black water didn't splash or ripple. It simply closed around her feet like it was swallowing her whole. I slammed the window shut so hard the glass rattled. My hands shook violently as I pulled the curtains closed, but when the fabric fell into place, I saw movement in the reflection. She was closer now, and she was smiling. I backed away from the window, my hands still gripping the curtain like it could keep her out. My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out every other sound. I needed to think. I needed a plan. Instead, I found myself moving into the kitchen like hiding behind the counter would make any difference. The apartment was quiet again, too quiet. Even the distant hum of the fridge had stopped. That's when I noticed the wall. The section between the kitchen and the living room looked closer than it should be, like it had shifted forward a few inches while I wasn't looking. My first thought was that the dim light was playing tricks on my depth perception. But then, right in front of me, the edge of the wall moved again, a slow, almost imperceptible creep, as if the room itself was shrinking. I took a step back, and my heel hit something solid far sooner than it should have. I turned. The opposite wall, the one with the hallway door, was now only a few feet away. My pulse spiked. I darted toward the door, but when I yanked it open, the hallway outside was gone. In its place was the same black water I'd seen from the window, stretching endlessly in both directions. I slammed the door shut and stumbled backward, my eyes sweeping the apartment. The kitchen counter was now touching the couch. The coffee table was pressed against my shins. The space was collapsing in on itself. Somewhere in the walls, faintly at first, I heard it, a slow, deliberate scraping sound like fingernails dragging across plaster. It grew louder, circling me, moving inside the very structure of the apartment. Then a whisper, low and smooth. We're almost together now. The floor lurched under my feet, and I fell forward into the coffee table. My phone slid out from under a cushion, its screen lighting up. A message from an unknown number. Look behind you. I turned, my breath caught in my throat. The bedroom door, the one I'd shut earlier, was now wide open. The open bedroom door felt like a mouth, dark, waiting, patient. The rest of the apartment had grown so cramped that there was nowhere else to go. Every corner I turned, another wall seemed to be in my way. It was like the space itself was hurting me toward that room. The scraping inside the walls followed me as I stepped closer, my hand brushing the frame. The air spilling out of the bedroom was colder than before, carrying that faint, stagnant water smell. Inside, the room looked almost normal: bed, nightstand, closet, but the light was wrong. Dim, gray, like the sky before a storm. And she was there. Emily, or what looked like Emily, stood at the foot of the bed. She was barefoot, her hair hanging wet over her shoulders. Her clothes clung to her skin like she'd been pulled out of a lake. Her eyes were empty pits. Her smile stretched too far. "You didn't say goodbye," she said. Her voice was exactly the same as it had been yesterday at the cafe, but now it was layered with something else, a faint echo, like two people speaking at once. I backed away, but my heel hit the wall. The space behind me had closed completely. She took a step forward, her feet making no sound on the floorboards. "I gave you a perfect day," she whispered, "and you gave me nothing." Her head tilted, sharp and unnatural, until it was almost upside down. That's when I saw it, the skin at her jawline rippling, as if something underneath was shifting. Her face moved, not the way a face should move. The skin itself slid, revealing, for a split second, something black and glistening beneath like wet stone. Then the skin snapped back into place, the smile returning, wider than before. My vision blurred at the edges. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. She reached into her pocket and pulled something out. A phone. My phone. It lit up in her hand. A single message appeared on the screen. "We'll see each other again." And then she dropped it on the bed between us. I stumbled back, my body trembling uncontrollably. The walls around me seemed to pulse with each heartbeat, narrowing the room until I felt crushed. She didn't move, didn't blink. Just stood there, smiling, waiting. I seized the only option I could think of. I dove past the bed toward the closet. Anything. I needed a hide to escape. The closet door slammed behind me, and I pressed my back against the cold wood, panting. My hands clutched the photo of me and the lake, the one with her blurred face, and I realized something terrifying. Everything I had lived through yesterday wasn't real. The cafe, the park, the lake, all of it. Emily had never been there. Every laugh, every smile I remembered, every shared ice cream cone, fabricated, planted, or worse, borrowed from my mind. A whisper came from the dark inside the closet. "Nathan, we've been waiting for you." I felt the air shift. Something pressed against the wood of the closet, breathing, heavy, alive. The closet started to shrink. The walls warped inward, bending reality. My head hit the ceiling, my shoulders scraped the sides. And then, I remembered the black water. The lake. It wasn't outside. It was here always. Everywhere. The apartment, the streets, the park, all just a surface over that endless dark. And she, or whatever had taken Emily's face, had been guiding me deeper into it. The last thing I saw before my vision went black was her smiling face, inches from my own, eyes still hollow, whispering the same words she had said in every impossible moment of the day. "We'll see each other again." And then, nothing. I don't know if I'm awake now, or still under her control. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I see the lake, see the reflection of someone who isn't me, smiling back. And the phone vibrates. A new message. "Thank you for a perfect day, Nathan. We'll see each other again." And I know, somehow, she isn't lying.